Alright, so today we are painting this butterfly and a flower. This is the color palette that I chose. So you should have your black, white, the light blue. This green, you're going to put 3 drops of black in. Red, another well of green, like halfway, orange and yellow. We may add more color later, but for right now, this is the palette that we're working with. Okay, so you should have your big brush, your flat brush, and then a round brush that has a point, okay? So we're gonna start, you should also have your paper towel, and you should have some clean water. I like to use a t-shirt that I've been wiping my paint off on for a while. I like to have that as well as the paper towel. All right, so we are going to start with our background first. So we're going to use the blue, and then we're going to go down to the green. In this area here, we're going to add a little white to blend, to make the sky a little bit lighter and blend in, okay? So you can wet your brush a little bit. You never want to take a soaking wet brush and dip it into your paint unless that's your intention. Your brush should be damp and not wet. All right, so we got our light blue. Don't worry, you can try to keep it around the clouds, but if you can't, that's fine. Once this paint dries, we're gonna go back over when we're doing touch-ups, and we'll go in and fill in the cloud, okay? Try your best to stay out of the, to stay out of the lines. If you happen to go within the lines, that's okay. We'll go back and fix it. Just try not to go too far over the line because you want to try to keep the shape of everything. It's the beauty of having a picture that's already outlined. Because then you can know where things are and how things, the shape of things. Some people don't have a steady hand to be able to keep shapes. Not everybody is an artist, so sometimes having the stenciled canvases can make things a little bit easier for you. All right, same thing with the sun. You want to try to go around as much as possible. If you go into the line, that's okay, because we'll go back over it later. Right. So a little bit of a disclaimer, I am a mom and my kids are awake. They hear me talking, so they know that I'm recording, but they will still come and ask questions. Why? Because they're kids. This is what they do. Okay. If you need to, you can fill in the larger areas with your big brush, and then take your little brush and go back in and fill in the smaller areas. I'm just going to turn my brush sideways and use the edgy point of my brush. All right, so your brush strokes, you want to try to keep them going the same way. That way it'll look more uniform, your painting will. Give it a little bit of a neater presence versus having lines that go this way and all around and swirl and everything. If you can't, that's all right. You do the best that you can. You don't have to do things exactly the way that I'm doing it. If you want to make little variations, that is absolutely fine. This is your creation. Have fun with it. So in a moment, we're gonna mix a little bit of white with this blue so that we can lighten up the sky some, so that it's not just one solid color sky. Okay. So you should have your little piece of tarp down so that you're not getting paint all over your table or all over your blanket, whatever surface you're painting on. I'm at my desk, so I don't mind getting paint on my desk. So you may find later on that you have little areas of patchy discoloration where your paint may not have been as heavy as the first pass on it. That's all right. You can go back in later and kind of spruce those up a little bit. So I'm gonna I took a little bit of white off the edge here, and I'm just gonna mix it in with the blue on my brush already. And I'm gonna come up here, and I'm not gonna just paint the brush stroke. What I wanna do is tap some of the white in. And I do this tap-in technique because I don't want to just brush it on. And I'm just gonna keep patting in color, and then we'll go back in and clean up the lines of it in a minute. I'm gonna come back up here, and I'm gonna keep patting in this color, blending it into this darker blue up here. And as the paint wears off of your brush, you'll get that fade look. Now, if you're not getting that fade look, you may have had too much paint on your brush and you just gotta keep going around. If you like the darker color and you don't wanna put any light in it, that's fine. But I like to have a different variation of sky. I don't want to just one solid color sky, because the sky is not just one solid color. I'm going to take this lighter blue all the way up to the cloud. If you don't have your cloud anymore, that's all right. You can just take it up until that lighter blue blends into the darker blue. So now I'm gonna come back down. I'm gonna put a little bit more of that light color on my brush. And by doing that, I also kind of create a flat edge on a paintbrush. And I want to come around this wing. Clean up some of that darker paint that's still sitting right at the wing. And fill in some of those white spots. So I want to fill in more of the white spots on this area now. And when we do our wing, we're going to take the wing and cover up those colors that have seeped over the line. And I want to do more of the edge on here now, because when we go back in and clean up the areas, we're not going to have this blue anymore, this mixture of blue, because it's going to dry out. And trying to mix colors exactly the same way that you had it before never really works out well. You always have a darker or a lighter color. Sometimes you get it perfect, but very occasionally where you get the same exact mixture. So this area down here is going to be all black. It's just a mountain area in the background or something like that. You can go over the line on there. That's fine. We're going to take this all the way down to the grass line. Okay, so you should be pretty close to finishing that up. I'm gonna rinse my brush off because I'm gonna use the green. I'm gonna mix up the green with the black. And I'm just gonna use the other end of my brush to mix that up. to do a darker green for the grass. I think I'm going to make this butterfly red, black, and green because I'm feeling that way today. All right, so right around the edge of your flower, you want to be careful so that you don't go too far over the line. Sometimes I'll go around it. So what I like to do when I'm painting close to areas that I don't want to go over, I start at the edge and then pull away. Okay. So I'm going to try to preserve my lines so that I can know where I need to stop. Okay. So as far as your brush strokes for this area, we're going to clean all of it up. I know we're going down and over and everything right now. So before this paint dries out, we'll go back in and clean up the brush strokes. We may even do a little bit of something like this just to give the definition of grass and the different patterns that grass takes on. But if you're going to do that, you got to start at the back and then come as you're coming forward instead of going from the bottom to the top. But we want to finish going around this flower here. Okay, so we've outlined our flower. I'm going to take your green paint. Like I said, you can go line by line. That's how I'm going to do it. I just got to make sure I don't keep this paint too dark. And as you get closer to the flower, you want to make sure that you're not padding over the line. So you start at the line and you go away from the flower, okay? And you don't want to leave any white areas, okay? If you go back up and you have to fix something, you got to remember that you got to go back in and come from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to paint some more on here, and I'm going to go back and do the technique that I was just doing. That's some good. Over the line. If you go over the line, it's okay. We can go back and fix that. I just want to come pull all this paint down, fill in all this white area, and then we'll come back and do the technique with it. This gives it a little bit of dimension, makes it look like your grass is further back than what it is. And just patting across. Okay. All right, so that's done. So I'm going to fill in this black area over here. I'm going to take my smaller flat brush. And this was the flat brush. So if you've gone over your line, all you want to do is come up to the top up here, and you're just going to make a raggedy, rigid, kind of shaky line down to your grass. If you have white areas, you can extend that black paint out. So that you cover in those areas that have lost the line or have just areas that you need to fill in. And your line doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's better when it's not perfect. If you're a person that can't draw a straight line to save your life, you will excel in making mountains. Because the whole point is to make jagged, weird lines that don't look straight, because mountains aren't straight. So you want to take your black right to the green line of your grass. So I'm going to go to the green line of the grass, and I'm going to pull up just a little bit away from the grass into the mountain, so that I'm filling in those white areas that my brush leaves behind when the paint doesn't fill in. And then you can just paint into the mountain and paint back up. Now, if you want to be really fancy, you can take and texture your mountain. And the way to do that is to just keep pulling the paint away, making it a little bit lighter in certain areas. For now, I'm going to leave that like that. Alright, so now we're going to start doing our flower. And the way that I want to do the flower is I want to do a yellow-green in the center here. So I'm thinking of doing a green in the center, putting some yellow into the green. And these spots in here, I may make those little white spots. Not sure yet, we'll see. So I'm gonna start off with my flat brush, rinse it off, wipe it off. You don't want it really heavy. And we're gonna take some of that green that doesn't have the black in it. And we're gonna do a little circle. Okay. So then we're gonna take some of the yellow, and don't go directly into the center of the green, but go around this, like leave like just the center of the green heavy, and then put that yellow into the rest of it. Okay, so you want to leave your center of your green darker and use the yellow green on the area around the center. We want to create a fade look. And you may need to add more yellow, add more green. If you can't keep the center green darker for the moment, that's okay. We can always go back and try to blend or whatever. Okay. So after I get all of the yellow, green filled in the middle of this, the center of this flower, and we try to leave that darker green in the middle, and we just kind of paint over that darker green to blend it out. If that's not working for you, that's all right, as long as the center is green and not a solid green. So as long as you have this center of the flower painted this yellow-green, it'll give some variation to the greens in your painting. If you want to go back, you can take the green and kind of just go in the center here, but this paint is wet, so the more you move it, the lighter it's going to get. So we're going to let this area dry up, okay? You're going to rinse your brush off, and we're going to start the petals. And the way that we're going to do the petals is we're going to fade from yellow to orange. So we're going to paint yellow down probably halfway and then start painting the orange too. Yeah, we'll do it that way. So what I'm going to do is take my flat small brush and I'm going to put some paint, some yellow paint around the center here. Okay. And I want to paint around the butterfly wing up at the line. So you start at the line and you pull back away from the wing. That way you're not getting this yellow all over the line of the butterfly wing, okay? Same thing on the other side, the bottom wing here. You want to come around that way you're not going into it, okay? So we're going to do the same thing for the center of the flower as well. We're going to take our paintbrush straight up toward the edge of it and pull away. And that way you're not getting your yellow mixed into the center. If it goes over the line, that's okay, because that yellow is already in the green right there, okay? And it's still wet, so that it's not just gonna sit on the top. It actually will you can kind of blend it with it. I went over the line too, so I'm just gonna blend this in. Okay, so now I'm gonna start to pull this yellow down more. So the larger areas, if you want to switch to your large brush, that's fine. I'm going to actually probably switch to the large brush when I hit the orange. But for right now, I want to just use the smaller brush. So you don't have to make it even, okay? So you're not looking for a straight, neat line. You're just looking for this yellow to get pulled down halfway, okay? I'm going to do the same thing up top. And you want to be mindful of your wings. So you kind of take your paint and go around the edge of the wing first. And then the same thing around your flower. And because I went into the yellow, into the green on the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing on the top just for consistency, so that when I'm blending and trying to get this to look even, it look a little uniform, okay? I adore you. And I'm going to do the same thing over up here. Just take that yellow halfway down. Still being mindful of the wings. Okay. I'm going to paint to the wings, start at the wing and pull up. That way I'm not painting into the wing. Okay. So I'm going to kind of try to see. So yellow is not going to show up too much in these other areas. Maybe a little bit underneath, in between the body and the wing here. You can smudge a little bit of yellow there, but It's not going to be a whole lot because the butterfly covers up that area. All right, so before this all yellow starts drying a lot, I want to go ahead and get my orange. So I'm going to switch brushes to the larger one. I'm going to leave it a little bit wetter than before because I want to mix this orange with this yellow, and the yellow is starting to dry there. Okay, so we're going to take our brush on the side, go up into this yellow, and start blending this orange in. Now, if your yellow has dried out, we're going to go get some more because we don't want to have a heavy orange line, okay? So you can take a little bit of your yellow and go into this orange. And you don't want to just straight brush the strokes. You want to kind of pull away and pat a little bit, okay? So as you go into your yellow, it's going to get orange, okay? And that's all right. We'll keep adding colors so that we can blend this so that it's not just a solid orange. All right. So this paint is a lot looser than the normal paints that I use. So trying to blend sometimes, it takes a little bit extra work for me, but it's fine. So I'm going to take some more orange and come down to the bottom and fill this orange all the way in. Be mindful of your grass line at the end of your petals. Okay. And we want to take our brush strokes and kind of neaten them up some. Don't worry about the blended area because we're going to still work on that. Same thing for the other petals. You want to start filling that orange in to the bottom. Being mindful of your grass line. Every time I tell you guys to be mindful of your lines, I start going over. I hope you're having fun with this. Try not to be too serious about it. Painting should be relaxing, should be fun. I know that not everyone is an artist, and it can be a little, it could be a little stressful. But you should be trying to have fun with it as much as possible because you're creating something, you're making something pretty. If you are feeling a little stressed about your painting, just take a few deep breaths through your nose. Try to relax. Have fun with it. If you're not doing that great with it, that's okay. All right. So before I move on to the next petal, I'm going to go back over with this yellow. Going to clean up my paint lines. When you go over paint, you want to start at the end of wherever you were and then do a full stroke over the entire area. You don't want to go halfway because when you go halfway, you'll put a brush stroke halfway through your painting. So I'm going to get some more yellow. And I'm going to come in here and start putting some more yellow down. We want to try to blend and fade as much as possible. So these areas that have dried, you're going to take paint on the end of your brush. And you're just going to keep smudging at it. Because even though it's dry, it feels dry, it's still wet. Okay? I'm just gonna keep pulling this yellow paint around. And trying to blend in everything. You can do that patting technique. Try to keep your line at your center. Try not to let the orange go into the center. Gonna put some more yellow around here. So I'm gonna keep filling in some more yellow. I'm not doing brush strokes because I don't want to move the paint into lines, but I just want to pat this yellow in here to really pull yellow into this orange. So just keep adding yellow on your brush and doing this patting technique, okay? All right, so now we're gonna go up to the top up here. Get some orange on your brush, go to your skyline, drop your orange away from the skyline, kind of like this here. That way you're not heavy at the skyline. And then you wanna take that paint that you've put down and go to the skyline and just start pulling away at where the petal starts and the sky ends. That way you're not taking your orange into the sky. If you get it in there a little bit, it's okay, but you don't want to be heavy over the line. So I went over the line of the petal with the sky, so I'm noticing a little bit of blue at the tip here. I'm not even gonna worry about trying to fix that. I'm just gonna leave that. That's kind of like minor. And we pull that orange down into the yellow. And that yellow is probably going to be dry just like the other side was, and that's okay. We just want to get this this orange filled into the petal. And we pull that orange down into the yellow, and then we're going to get some more yellow and come back up and blend it and get it looking right, okay? So I want to go into this other petal where the butterfly's head is. You want to be careful with not going too far over the lines on your butterfly. You don't have to worry about the antenna. You can paint over those because you can still see those lines. But we want to take our paint into the yellow. If you need to switch to your smaller brush in order to get into these smaller areas, that is absolutely fine. That is the correct thing to do. You want to drag this orange around the wing, still being mindful of the wing. So I'm going to go back up toward the top of this petal in the wing and just pull this brush stroke around. Try to clean these brush strokes up some. Right. So now I'm going to take that yellow and I'm going to start coming back up into the orange. So your blend will be probably a little bit cleaner with the yellow if you rinse your brush off. I'm not going to rinse my brush because I like to move these colors together. But if you feel like your blending is getting really messy, or if you feel like you want less orange down here, you can try rinsing your brush. These paints, like I said, are really loose, so it may not work as well, but you definitely can try it. So I'm gonna take the edge of my brush right now as I'm spreading this paint around, and I'm gonna start patting it again with the heavier yellow in order to blend that orange and that yellow in. right? And you want to go halfway down. Okay. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to do this bottom petal. Putting my paint down, okay? And then coming back and going to the grass line where the petal ends and pulling my paint away back into the center of the flower. Trying to avoid going into the paint line. Okay. We're going to take that orange around the wings of the butterfly, being mindful not to go over the line too much. And you want to drop your paint down like you did before, and then go back up to the line and pull paint away from the wing. So the paint in between the body and the wing, like I said before, if you want to grab your smaller brush and go in between there so that you're not using your fat brush and making a mess. And you're going to do the same thing for both wings. Okay. Okay. So blending this little area in between the body and the wing. I'm just going to take a little bit of yellow on the round brush. And I'm going to tap this yellow and this orange together in this little area. I'm going to pull that yellow into the orange. You don't have to do a lot because it's not a whole lot there. Okay, so now I'm going to go back into the center and I don't know, I think I want to do, let me try some dark green. Taking my round brush and just making a little dark green. You might be able to still see your little circles in there. If you can, fill those in. If you can't, just put some dots in there. Doesn't have to be uniform. It can be. I can't see my dots anymore because I covered them all up with the paint. So I'm just going to sporadically put some dots around. I think I'll do more smaller dots toward the middle and let those bigger dots sit toward the end. Okay, so after this, we're gonna let this area dry up. Uh-oh, I went too deep with that one. All right, I'm doing too much now. All right, that's done. Once this dries, I'm gonna go back with some more yellow because I want it to blend a little bit better. I don't know, we'll see. Maybe I won't. Maybe I need to define the green a little bit more. Looks like it's not defined enough for me. All right, back to the top. Filling in the sky and the sun. Well, the clouds and the sun. So for the sun, we're gonna take a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white, more white than yellow. So I'm gonna take, I'm gonna use my round brush, and I'm gonna get a little bit of yellow. Okay. You wanna rinse your brush off because you're gonna go into your white, and you don't wanna pull white into your yellow. I mean, you're gonna go into your white, you don't wanna put yellow in your white. So I'm gonna scoop up some white, and I'm gonna take 2 scoops of white. I'm gonna mix that together, and it should give you this pale yellow. And I'm gonna roll this paint off of here. I'm gonna rinse my brush. And you're gonna dry it off. You don't want that wet. You actually want this a little bit drier, so spend a few extra seconds drying a little bit more. All right, so first thing we're gonna do with this yellow and white is we're gonna go into the center of that circle on the sun, and we're gonna paint that circle with this yellow, pale yellow. Okay. So now what you're gonna do after you paint with the pale yellow is we're gonna take our brush and go to the top, go all the way out on that point, okay? We're gonna pull all these points back into the center. I like to use this round brush because the point on it kind of has that same point of a pencil or a pen. Okay, so then we're gonna go back in and we're gonna connect these points. And if you still have your lines, you're just basically following and filling in the area where the lines are. Now over this cloud area, I'm just gonna paint over it, and then when I do the cloud will go over the sun, like. So once this dries, you can go back in and do a second coat, because this blue is going to come through on some of these areas. Okay. So your cloud, I want to take the bigger brush. I'm going to rinse that really good and get that orange out of it. I'm gonna take the edge of my bigger brush and wisp like this, just pull it straight across, filling in all the areas that are that have the line. Now I use my bigger brush because I happen to like bigger, fuller clouds. So I'm gonna go and make these clouds bigger. You can leave yours like this if you like those kind of clouds, but I happen to like fuller, bigger clouds. And if I don't have fuller, bigger clouds, I don't feel right. So I don't want to leave these wispy lines down here. So I'm going to come back in with the top of my brush and go around those wispy lines. And once that dries up some, I'm going to come back in and add more to it. Same thing I'm going to do over here, because like I said, I don't really care for straight clouds. I like big fluffy clouds. Okay. Oh boy. If you need to take a moment and stretch, get up and walk around, take a step back from your painting and look at it, go for it. All right, so we're gonna start working on this butterfly. Your orange should be dry enough now that it's not coming off on your hand or anything. Ooh, excuse me. So we're going to use our flat brush and we want to start with this center part of the wings. We're not going to do the outline on the outside yet. I think we're going to take this and make this red, and I want to do a red until it kind of fades in. Okay, so we're going to put some red on our flat brush, go to the edge of the line where that intersection ends, and we're going to pull this red around. If you don't have a steady hand, you can always go to the line and then pull back in, okay? But if you do have a steady hand, go to the line and then just trace that line with the red paint. I'm going to turn it so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, so after you get that part done, you want to just paint this in. So you don't want your brush super wet with paint while you're doing this. You want to try to let your paint dry on your as you're drying out. Paint from the center of the butterfly out once you have it filled in. Because what you want to do is you want to lighten up the area of the wing that goes toward the body with the, you want to thin out that red paint to make it lighter red. And then we want to leave this back area a little heavier because we want the back area to be darker red. Okay. If you can't get that, that's okay. This paint is, like I said, a really loose paint. So trying to keep things darker doesn't always work, and then you have to go back over it. So that's probably what's going to happen. I'm going to have to go back over it. Try to stay inside your lines. So I'm going to take and paint this little area down here on the wing. I want to paint that in and fill that in red too. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And like I said, if you got a steady hand and you can pull it around, go for it. If you don't, you want to come up to your line and just pull your paint away from the line. That way you're not going too far over the line. I told you, every time I say don't go over the line, I go over the line. The defiant mind. Okay. All right. And we're going to keep going all the way around. And you want to fill this whole area in just like you did with the other one. And then once you fill it in, you want to pull away from the center as you're just blending all the rest of your paint in.
Mommy?
Yes, child?
Do we have long bread? Like, I don't remember what it's called. Hoagie bread?
For what?
So I can make a hoagie.
I'm not making a hoagie right now.
Can I get Uncrustable then?
No, you can have some waffles or pancakes. You need to tell your brother to come help you. All right, so you're gonna take and keep filling in this area. Go all the way up. Fill this all in with red. And then when you finish filling in with red, you wanna take and paint back toward, away from the body, so that you're loosening up this red paint toward the bottom and making that a little bit less dark. And making it more darker toward the back of the wing. And then we got to go in and fill in this other little area over here. Okay. Might have thicker paint in some areas. If you need to clean that up, go for it. I like how that one looks. I don't like how that one looks. It's all about the brush strokes for me. Okay. All right, so after we fill in this red, we are going to come down here and fill in green. So you want to leave the outline area that's going to be black. And you want to come inside into this design part of the wing and fill that in with green. So we got like a lot of curvy areas here, so you want to be mindful. If you need to use your round brush, you can go ahead and do that for the curvier areas. But I think you should be fine with the flat brush. Just use the thinner edge of the flat brush to go in between those areas. And you don't want your paint heavy. At least not at first. Try to stay in the lines as much as possible. Okay. So I want to do the other side now too. Okay. How are you liking your painting so far? I hope you like them. I hope you're having fun. And I hope you're not stressed about it. I hope you're relaxed. Hopefully you're taking this opportunity to not pay attention or think about other things you got going on in your life. And you just focus on painting. God bless you. You have so many other things to worry about all the time. Painting is a way of not being tuned in to those specific things. Or you can use this time to focus and really think about things while you're painting. Give you a chance to clear your mind from other things. It does help with that too. These ladies, I'm gonna let it shrivel up. Okay, so as we finish this, you want to get ready to fill in these little circle areas and these little areas outside on the wing. I was trying to decide if I wanted to go a little darker or a little lighter. Or if I just want to leave it green. I think I just want to leave it green. But I'm going to switch to my round brush so that I can get into these smaller little areas. And I'm going to start over here. And they don't have to be perfect. And try to fill in the little circle areas and the little or oval areas. I'm gonna try to stay in the lines as much as possible, but if you don't stay in the line, that's okay, because this whole outside is gonna be black and we can cover up a little bit better with the black.
Yes, thirsty. Aaron, that's why you suck. You don't know how to play read.
Excuse me, not so loud. Thank you. All right, and we have, got two large sections. My lines are a little light over here. Just realized I missed a little part of red up there. Go back and get that too.
Make my Panama cakes.
All right.
Say no, someone.
Okay, so now that that is done, I'm gonna go back up here because I missed the two little red spots. And I wanna get that before I paint the black, because once you paint the black, trying to paint over the black with another color is too dark and you don't often see it the right way. So just a little bit of red. All right, so now I'm gonna take my black and I'm gonna start to go around and fill in the outside of the butterfly. I wanna use my round brush to do this because I wanna keep my paint area, small as possible. If you use the wide brush, you're gonna go probably into your colors a lot more. Get green paint on me. So I'm gonna start up here. And I see where I painted into over with the blue. So I'm just gonna fill those areas in and cover those areas up. Let's see. So I'm gonna be turning my canvas a lot during this part so that I can make sure that I'm staying on, staying within the lines. So if at any point I kind of lose you guys, you have to rewind or fast forward to catch up, depending upon where you are. If you lost your head to your butterfly, I'm just gonna make you can make a circle, you can make an oval, you can make a pear shape. And you want to be easy when you go around your red, and try not to go into it too much. If you go into it with like a stray mark, you can erase by taking your brush, wetting your brush, drying it off some, and then kind of smudging over the area you messed up. The only issue with that is if your paint is still wet, which it is, you may end up blending instead of cleaning up. So you have to be careful. Use your judgment. Sometimes those stray lines aren't worth it. Just leave them. Sometimes it's not easy to keep your hand steady. I have a shaky hand sometimes, so it can be frustrating. But I just try to do the best that I can. Try to be patient with it. Go back over areas once they dry. If you have a stray line, you can try to paint back over it with the paint that it went into, and see how that works. But if you use the pointy brush, you can add paint to the little spots that kind of get left behind with the pointy end of your brush, and keep it neat versus trying to use the bigger brush. I often end up making things much wider than I want them to be, because I'll try to put my brush at the line instead of before the line, and just letting the brush flatten out to fill in the area that I want. guys, how do you feel about your painting? Would love to see what they look like. So when you finish today, if you can post it on Instagram or Facebook and tag it, hashtag that John or that John art. That THAT John JAWN or that John art. Love to see what people have created. It's like I did a stencil, but I know that everybody's is going to look different, and that's the beauty of art. Is that everybody's eyes see something different, and our coordination is not the same. We don't all like the same colors. I'd love to see what these look like. Oh man. So don't worry about those little white spots that we leave behind. We'll go back and you can fill those in once we finish. If you can get to them now, that's fine, but I like to take care of the larger section first and then go back. Be really careful when you're going in between your two colors. I do apologize when I get really focused, I get really quiet. We may even have to do a second coat on this black once it dries. Enough for us to add a second coat. If you don't want to, that's fine. I think I may want to do that because I think I want a really solid black on there. Okay. Working around these little areas, trying to keep them green and not go too far into this black with it. So I may have gone into the over the line a little bit too much down here, so I'm gonna just add a little bit of extra area. So since I have nothing artsy to talk about at the moment, how have you been doing as far as your mental health with the changes in our world happening? I asked that question to a lot of people, and most people will answer based off of how they feel about coronavirus. I asked a lot of brown people how they're feeling, because we don't ask that question of ourselves and our family members. How are you feeling with, mentally, with everything that's going on? People think that I'm asking about coronavirus, but I'm really asking about our social changes that need to happen. I'm really talking about how people feel about witnessing a lot of the traumatic things that we're seeing online and seeing in the news. And just trying to be present for the people that come in my path, and caring for the people that come in our path, because a lot of people don't have a support system. Some people don't have sensible people in their tribe who, when they ask, don't ask them these questions. So I ask you, how are you doing mentally? How are you feeling with everything that's happening in our world? If you need somebody to talk to, reaching out to somebody is definitely a big help. We have a lot of therapy happening online and virtual sessions. Therapy is an awesome thing. Taking the time to talk to someone about the issues that's going on with you is an awesome thing. We cannot handle this life on our own, although a lot of us feel like we can. And then when it starts to get too heavy, we get so overwhelmed that we don't know where to look for help. So talk to somebody before it starts to feel too overwhelming. Because most of the time when it feels so overwhelming, you just get to the point where you want to give up. Giving up is not an option, right? How are you doing with your painting? Are you having any difficulties? If you are, take a deep breath.
Mommy?
Hit rewind. Go back to the part you need to go back to in order to move forward.
It says I have to log into Epic.
Your login is on the paper on the wall. Mm-hmm. Right, so we are moving right along, avoiding going over the lines. I like this butterfly.
Mommy, I don't know what to do.
Give me a second. Okay. students and educators. Mrs. Grant's class.
Oh, mommy.
Alright, you can't do epic right now. Do something else. Get a roll book.
Okay.
And I'll take a look at it. They might have ended your free trial, your free class time. Alright, sorry about that. Alright, so I'm going to finish up this bottom wing and then I'll move on to the other ones. Okay. All right. Gonna paint the body. I think I want to do some polka dots on the back of him because I feel like that right now. Okay. So on the back here, I'm gonna just pull a line up to the head. And then go around these wing areas. Pulling some lines into it like this. Make sure you guys can see. Okay. I want to do the same thing in the red. Just put a few little lines over here like this. Make sure you're staying in your lines as much as possible. Do the best you can with keeping your hands steady around these, around your areas that you already painted. If your brush is getting stuck a little, you just need to rinse it off and add more paint and reapply.
Oh, what the heck? What was that? What was that? In that pocket.
Okay.
Mom, bring me kids.
All right, so I'm gonna turn this again. Take care of these areas over here. And the reason we do the black last is because when you have all these other things that you paint in, going over the line into the section where it will be painted black is much easier to just paint over the other colors with the black versus trying to color over the black with different colors if you had did it in the reverse. If you're not confident with your paintbrush, like I said, you can go in and start at one area and just kind of pull away from the section that already has paint in it. It's just going to take you a little longer to get through painting this, which is not a problem. You want to take it that way. Whatever works for you.
What will you see?
Okay. Go back up here and fill in. I'm gonna come up here too and fill in these little white spots that I left behind when I did a brush stroke.
Aaron, how do you make it?
Okay, so I'm gonna go around this little red spot here.
How do you make it?
Alright. Excuse me. Please, Rob. So my paint is getting a little thin. I didn't dry my brush off enough. So I'm gonna go back once that dries up some, and I'll go back over it with another coat of the black. I'm not gonna keep trying to paint on it because it just keeps thinning out. Okay. So while I paint, I usually listen to music. I haven't played anything out loud. I have my earphones on. At some point I may add music to the videos, but for right now, you just get me talking. Sometimes I listen to podcasts while I'm working. Top 2 podcasts that I listen to at the moment. One is, well, right now I'm listening to this one podcast called Co-Working. It was made by my friend Angela and her friends Radaya and Laura, which is really good. It's Black Women in Business podcast. And then I listen to Girl Trek, which is a walking podcast. You're supposed to walk along while you listen to it. And if I'm going to be honest, I don't always walk when I listen. But they've been doing Black History Boot Camp, and they're on their second round of that. And this time they're doing activism. It's been really good, really interesting information. People that I've known about, but just facts that I didn't know. First Black History Boot Camp, they just did Black History without an actual, it was women in Black History, but it was like without an actual focus other than just highlighting women in Black History. But the second round has been women and men who were activists and what activated their activism. So it's interesting. I don't know if any of you have ever listened to Girl Trek or Co-Working, but if you have, great. If you haven't, check them out because they're really interesting. Right, just taking my time to go around these little green circles because I don't want to smudge into the green. If you smudge into your green or into your red, you can kind of go around it and make it a little bit smaller, but trying not to go over the line is ideal. Take your time in your orange so that you don't go onto your petals, okay? we're almost finished. I hope you're happy with your painting. I keep saying that because I really mean it. I hope your experience is going well. I hope that my instruction has been clear and you haven't gotten lost in it. Good thing about this is that if you did get lost, you can always pause it and go back. You know? I'm gonna go back around here and clean that up in just a second. So once I finish this butterfly, I'm gonna go back up to the clouds and fill the clouds in and give it some more thickness, because right now they're looking really thin. Okay. So once we finish everything, I'm gonna go back over and fill in areas that I feel like are a little too light, especially in this black. But I'm not gonna do that on camera. That'll be finished when we finish. So if you wanna do the same thing, feel free to. If you are happy with your painting and you don't wanna do anymore, fine. If you're over this experience and you don't want to do anymore, that's fine as well. I wish you would have had a better time, but we don't all like the same things, and that's okay. We don't all have the same experience. We don't all have the same understanding when it comes to instruction. Some of us learn differently, but I hope that's not your experience. Okay. All right. So what I want to do, so I'm going to do the same thing that I did in this area over here. I'm going to do it over here too. I'm just going to pull a little bit of black into the wing some.
Mommy?
Yes, child.
Can I go to the gym?
No, child. You're not dressed. Did you take care of yourself this morning? No, you did not. Turn that kitchen light off. Take care of yourself. You know what you're supposed to do.
Aaron had pancakes.
Listen, I know what Aaron has going on. I need you to go take care of you. Excuse me. So we're going to go back in and just do a little bit of filling in to this wing to just show where they connect. And it doesn't have to be thick at all. You're just pulling in and making a little bit of a fade into the wing. Okay. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing in the red. That my paint is coming off of this brush is not coming off into an area where I can just kind of like do lines for whatever reason. So I'm just going to smudge a little. Okay, and I'm going to pull it down into this green too, and do that same smudge because I don't want it to look ununiform. I want it to look like natural, okay? And as I'm pulling out this black into the wings, I want to start to thin out some, okay? So you're going to pull your black out pretty far, but as you get further and further out, you want to start to thin it out so that that green still comes through and you don't have a whole bunch of black. And it's going to fade into the wing to make it look like it's happening naturally, okay? So your paint on your brush should be really, really, really thin right now, to the point where it's kind of like, all right, it's not even doing anything. But it is. It's fading and smudging. And that's what we want to happen. We want it to fade and smudge. Okay. So as your brush is drying out, you should have that kind of effect. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna do the white up there. I'm gonna rinse this black off my brush. Okay. So now I'm gonna go back up to the white in the clouds. And I'm going to, let's see, my brush is still damp. So I'm just gonna get some white paint, very little, okay? So I'm gonna show you what I mean by little. Very little, okay? And I'm gonna start in the middle and just kind of go to the out. And I'm just filling in the lighter white areas so that this doesn't look so blue and you don't see that white that I had left, the thin wispy cloud. Now this is only if you decided to make your clouds thicker like I did. If you didn't decide to do that, then you don't really have to do this unless it's light and you want to darken it up. But we want to make this one solid white blob. And the reason for that is because clouds aren't one solid white blob. Okay. Oh, the artist in me can't leave this. All right, so what I want to do, and this is just a different little technique. I'm going to wet my brush a little bit, putting this white. Okay. I'm going to rinse my brush off. And I'm going to tip, on the tip of my brush, I'm going to get a very little bit of black. Okay, almost to the point where it's like, what is that going to do? And I'm going to mix that black into this white that I had pulled off. Okay. It still needs to be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to get a little bit more white. Okay. So I'm going to make this really light gray. Really thin, loose paint. And what I'm going to do, my sun source is here, so I'm going to leave this side of the cloud light, but I want to pull a little bit of darkness into these clouds. Okay. Just to give a little bit of dimension. I'm not gonna leave it that heavy either. I'm gonna go back over with some white and pull some of this out a little. All right, so I'm gonna rinse my brush off. And I'm going to take some more white on my brush, and I'm going to go back into those clouds where I painted and go over this gray and pat on it like this, blotting it. Okay. Pull some more white in. We want to lighten this up. So my brush is dry. I rinsed it off. I dried it out some. I'm going to go back where I came out of the line on this gray a little and clean up these lines a little bit. And I'm just pushing back toward the cloud the paint that came out. Okay? And now I'm going to go over this gray with the same brush and just patting on it to make it more blended and so that it doesn't look choppy. Okay.
Mommy, I need help.
You're not wearing that. Go put that back. Go get a t-shirt. If you're doing the gray underneath the cloud, you don't want it thick. You want it to be more of a shadow-ish kind of thing. Okay, excuse me, sir. I'm recording. I didn't told you I can't have you loud out here. Okay, thank you. Okay, so just keep blending that gray and that white by patting on them. And what's going to start to happen, like over here, you got a separation between the white and the gray is what I have. Over here I have a little bit more gray, so I'm going to whiten up around certain areas because you don't want to leave them all dark or all light. I want to give the appearance that the clouds have the light from the sun and then the darkness from where it's not touching or it's not coming up. But this cloud may be off to the side of the sun, so we just need to take and make a little bit of highlight a little. So I'm using the opposite end of my brush with some white just to tap into these areas that are closer to the sun. Okay. Okay. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. We need to do our antenna. So we're gonna take our our white round brush on the tip, a little bit of the water left on, get a little bit of your black and just rinse, take a little bit of black on the tip, and in a space where you still have some space, just mix that water and that black up together so that you have more of a fluid paint, because we're going to gently just copy that line of the antenna. Okay?
Yep, I know.
Okay, so I want to take that same brush, I'm going to dry it off, rinse it and dry it. Going to go into that yellow and white that I mixed up. I still have a little bit of it left that's wet. Yours may be dry. You might need to take your brush and just take it and add some water onto it to loosen it up. If that doesn't work, very lightly mix up some white and some yellow so that you can fill in these areas in the sun that are still coming through as blue. Okay. Ah, I came out my line.
What is you looking at?
Okay, so I'm gonna finish off with fix that black that I left a little light over here. This was that area that my brush was too wet in, and it left it really light grayish instead of black. So I'm gonna go back over this, and like I said, once I finish the video I may go back over this entire butterfly anyway, because I'm noticing some areas that are still a little light. So if you feel like you need to do the same thing, feel free to go for it. Like I said before, this is your painting. The way that I do mine, just giving you a tutorial on how to do this painting, but however you want to do it, go for it. Like I said, I wanted to put some, I think I want to do some light green spots. I'm going to mix up some green and white. So a little bit of green and white on the tip of my brush. It's like this minty green. And I just want to do a couple of specks on the tip of the butterfly's tail. And I want to do a few down the back. And I want to pull, that's a good idea, pull that green into the wings of the green on the wing. Just to give it something different. Good. Okay. So last thing I want to do before I sign it, it's important to always sign your work. It's your work, you did it, and if you don't want anybody to know you did it, then don't sign it. But if you are happy with your work and you feel really proud and confident about it, go for it. Sign your work. But I always sign my work when I'm finished, after I've taken a look at it. And once I sign it, I never go back to it. It's just a thing that I do. I'm gonna take some of this regular green and go in the center here and darken this up some.
I still got 100 more hours.
And I want to go around this flower here. And I want to pull it into the flower, the center. And I know we got that yellow on there, and that's cool. I kind of want to just make it a little bit more defined, because I feel like that yellow, as it's blending from the flower to the center, that it cut off the separation of the flower in the center, and it left it kind of mute.
Imagine if you got banged every single game except for mine.
Okay. And what I want to try is taking this orange, and I want to come down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of white, a little bit of orange and a little bit of water. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to take and make a orange line where these darker lines are, just to kind of define it a little bit. Because I feel like it's just mute. And it needs a little bit of definition in certain areas. Now I'm doing too much. So I'm gonna take some of this yellow and blend it, and I'm gonna stop doing too much.
Oh my god, that represents Mommy?
Right, so now we're gonna take this up here with this orange. Okay. And lastly, I'm going to take a little bit of the orange and come in to this line in here and pulling that line into the center. Okay. All right. So that's done. I hope you like your painting. Hope you've enjoyed this session. In order to sign my name, I take and wet my brush. I usually sign in a lighter color versus wherever I'm signing at. So I'm going to sign down here on the green. I want to get some white. I want to get my paintbrush wet. It's going to be really loose paint, and I'm going to roll it off some. Now, writing letters with your paintbrush is always can be a bit of a challenge. Don't try to just push down on it. You want to lightly use the point of your brush, okay?
Mommy?
Okay. So, as I said, I would love to see your paintings. If you can go on to Facebook or to Instagram, hashtag ThatJawn, ThatJawn, or ThatJawnArt, ThatJawnArt. So I thank you for painting with me today. This has been fun. I hope you like your paintings. My name is Barbara, or Nikki Barbara, Barbara Nikki, whatever you call me, but I am ThatJawn. Thanks for having me. Have a good day.